Cool. Great then. I think we have some folks already here. Good evening, guys. My name is Karan Nahata, and today we're going to have this session with Mr. Dhawal Parvatikar on how to prepare for business finance roles. And we're sort of very excited to have this session with him. He is a chartered accountant, a CFO of a leading PR firm. I am Alum, and he's also has 10 plus years of experience in business finance roles at leading MNC companies, and he's also a very active mentor to finance professionals. You should definitely check out his LinkedIn profile. To give you a brief introduction of myself as well, I currently lead Swiggy's demand and supply strategy team, and I started my stint with Swiggy from the business finance team. So I'm also excited to have this session and learn a few things about the business finance role. I'm just going to introduce him now. Hey, hi, Dhawal.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm super excited to be here and collaborate with Redon for this session. So let me just quickly share my screen and we'll start the session. So it's all about business finance roles. And I hope you guys will get some great takeaways from this. So let me quickly share my screen and we can start with the session right away.
As in terms of structure, we're going to keep the questions for the end. We're going to have a 15-minute Q&A session during the latter part of the live stream. And we also have some questions from beforehand, which we're going to take up with Dhawal.
Yeah, Karan, just let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Yes, Dhawal, we are able to see the screen.
Okay, great. So once again, good evening, everyone. So welcome to the session on preparing for business finance roles. So we will have, like Karan mentioned, we'll have a detailed Q&A session at the end as well. So just focus on the presentation for now and get rid of all the distractions that you might possibly have. Okay, cool. So a brief introduction, qualified chartered accountant. I've also completed a 1-year executive management program from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Over the past 10 years, I've worked with various Indian and multinational corporations in managerial and leadership roles. I have got diverse industry experience with oil and gas, software, advertising, and now I'm working with a PR company. I also consider myself a sincere student of personal development. I keep investing in myself, literally lakhs of rupees every year to just keep upgrading myself, and through various sources, training programs, mentoring, and doing a lot of stuff as well. I'm also an active mentor to chartered accountants. I started something called as #Saturday Mentoring. That's my official hashtag on LinkedIn. And so where I reserve my Saturdays to help and guide CA, CMA, CPS to get better career direction. I'm also been an online instructor last 2 years, and I've trained over more than 3,000 professionals through my website, trainforcorp.com, where you can find a bunch of free and paid training programs for finance professionals. Okay, a lot of them are around career guidance and not really technical stuff, because I felt that is what is missing out there. You can learn Excel and tools from somewhere, from other platforms, but what you need to get is the right guidance. So that's what I have focused on my website so far. Cool, I'm excited to be here. So let's begin with today's session. So what do we cover? We'll cover what are the different kind of roles on the industry side. So I'll make it very easy for you by putting them into 3 broad buckets, because there are hundreds of different kind of profiles out there when we talk about finance, and it can be really confusing. What is the nature of work at each level as you grow higher up the ladder? What is the right mindset required for industry finance roles? Because fundamentally, it is going to be very different from working in a CA firm, right? And how to be great at business finance? How can you really be a true finance business partner? Okay, so that's what we'll be covering today. So what is a business focused finance role? See, when we normally think about a finance function or a finance role, we think about 2 extremes. One extreme is really the financial reporting part of it, that is into accounting, preparing financials, notes to accounts, liaising with the auditors. So all of those things form one part of it, which is largely compliance focused and financial reporting focused. The other extreme is we think finance is something really fancy, about mergers and acquisitions or valuations or NPV and IRR and capex and all of these things, right? So that part comes to our mind. or portfolio management, or investment management, and all of these things come to our mind. Okay, but there is actually finance also needs to support the business. That is the primary job of finance, right? So take it any business, be it a manufacturing, trading, or a services company, or any company for that matter. The first duty of finance is to make sure that the business is running profitably, right? And this requires continuous interaction with non-finance teams, continuous interaction and continuously supporting the business teams, right? So that is what we'll be talking about today. These roles will have a blend of finance and business management, right? So you need to have a little bit of understanding about the business so that you can give them a finance solution with your background. Okay, so what are the different kind of profiles available out there? Typically, when you qualify your chartered accountancy or any of these professional qualifications, and when you get into the industry, if you look at a large company or a business house or a conglomerate, yeah, typically there'll be hundreds of different kinds of roles or profiles within these companies. But to make it easy for you, I have bucketed them into three broad areas, right? And what are these three broad areas? First is financial reporting and compliance. Second is business finance, or in some companies it's called finance business partnering, or also financial planning and analysis. And then there are some specialty finance functions which cannot be really clubbed into any group. Okay, the first bucket is all about accounting, compliances, reporting, taxes. So largely you're dealing with preparing financial statements, notes to accounts, consolidation, audits, statutory compliances, tax compliances, regulatory reporting. Like for example, if you're working with a non-banking finance company, then maybe you'll have certain regulatory reporting. If you're working with an insurance company, then you'll have a certain set of regulatory reporting to do. So all these things, financial reporting and compliance, is covered in these buckets. Normally, during our articleship or any of our professional courses, we do have a fair exposure of these areas. If we are coming from an audit background of an account or an accounting or a tax background, we do have fair exposure to this area, this bucket. The second bucket is all about management reporting or commercial understanding or supporting the business, right? Here, some of the key activities that you will be doing are budgeting, that is preparing an annual budget or preparing an annual business plan for the company, where you will estimate the revenue, estimate the cost, estimate the profit, right? Then forecasting, where you are continuously monitoring the performance of the company, like let's say 3 months of actuals plus 9 months of forecast, or if you have to prepare a forecast for half year, then maybe half year of actuals and then half year of forecast. Yeah, so that's about forecasting. Then whole lot of analysis about what is our revenue, where is our revenue coming from, what are our top costs, how do we manage them, what are our gross margins, product wise, service wise, what are our gross margins. So all of those things. A lot of profitability analysis depending on the kind of company you're structured in. If you are structured in a business unit wise company, then you'll be looking at profitability at a business unit level or a customer unit level or product level, yeah, or regional level. If you're a regional company where you have southern region, eastern region, western and northern region, then maybe you'll try and do regional profitability analysis, branch level profitability analysis, product level profitability, customer level profitability. So all these kind of different profitability analysis is what you will be involved in, so that you can enable the senior folks or the business teams to take better decisions. Management commentaries, usually after the month close or the quarter close, you try and do a budget versus actuals variance analysis or a forecast versus actuals variance analysis, and try and find out the reasons of why revenue has gone up or down, or why costs have gone up or down. So that's about management commentaries, where you kind of provide the reasoning, liaise with the business, find out the reasoning, and then prepare it in a commentary and give it to the senior management so that they can take informed decisions and understand how the business is doing and where are we heading in terms of direction. Are we heading in a profitable direction or no? Or is there any corrective steps required? That's what management commentaries enable the senior management to take decisions. Then there are then there's about working capital management, which is about managing all the working capital from receivables to payables and everything. Then there are capex proposals. If your company is getting involved in some of the capex related decisions, then you will be involved in analyzing whether we need to go for this capex or no. Contracts, it could be negotiating large customer contracts or vendor contracts, pricing, how do you price your products, what is the costing structure, what is the resourcing requirement, all of those things you are getting involved in this. Recharges, where one company or a one business unit within a company can incur costs on behalf of other companies or other business units, and you will formulate a formula or a mechanism how you can recharge these companies to recharge this cost to other companies or business units, so that the true profitability of that business unit can be ascertained, right? So that is about business finance and FP&A. Largely, these are the activities that you will be doing in this bucket. We'll talk a little bit more about as we progress in this training. Then there are expert tasks or specialty finance functions, which are really hard to group in any one department. Some examples of this are treasury or banking, where you are maintaining relationship with banks, handling the treasury. If it's a large company, then they'll have a separate treasury team. Then again, forex management. If your company is dealing in a lot of forex transactions, then you might be involved in managing active forex contracts and hedging and all of that. Mergers and acquisitions. If it's a large conglomerate, then you might have a mergers and acquisitions department where they are looking at target companies to acquire. Fundraising, investment management. If your company has a lot of surplus funds, then you will be liaising with portfolio managers or other investment support companies, where you'll liaise with them and make sure that your surplus funds are invested in a profitable way. Structured finance, looking at the group as a whole and coming up with the most tax efficient group company structure. That's structured finance. Strategy, again, how financially prudent your business decisions will be. That is what strategy is all about, where whatever the company decides on a larger scale, you will have to evaluate the financial impact of that strategy. Supply chain finance, again, over the last 10-15 years, this has emerged as a very important field, where you help your supply chain, your company's supply chain, to get effectively financed. Like, for example, if your company is a very large manufacturing company, then you might tie up with some finance company to help them finance your vendors. That will in turn make your life easier, and your vendors will be able to give attractive price to you. Okay, price of raw materials or whatever, right? And then there could be some technology profiles where you act as a functional consultant, or you like solving complex problems with technology. Maybe you're an SAP expert, or maybe you're a business intelligence tools expert, right? Something like that. If you are somebody who likes that, like solving complex problems with technology, then maybe this profile is for you, right? So these are the different kind of buckets available depending on the size of the company. If it's a very large company, then all of these will be separate departments. If it's a mid-size kind of a company, then maybe your roles will overlap, right? You will be handling financial statements also, you will be handling budgeting also, you will be handling a little bit of treasury also. So if it's a small to mid-size company, then you may get exposure to all of these things, right? And just 1 second, guys. Yeah, so depending on the size of the company, you will get exposure to either all of this, or you might be just placed in one specific department. Yeah, so that's how it's going to be. Okay, so let's proceed further, and we can discuss a bit more about this. So largely, when I say business finance roles, it is the second bucket that I'm talking about. Okay, here your job will be to continuously support the business to make sure that the business is primarily running in a profitable direction. That's what your role will be. Now, where do I start? Many times CA freshers or somebody who's early in their careers, will have this confusion of where do I start? Which profile is the best? I get mentoring calls where sometimes the CA fresher asks me, "Sir, tell me one best profile where I have a very good future." But it's hard to say, which one is best, because you will not be doing the same stuff for the next 30 years. If you look at a typical CFO's office, there'll be whole different set of departments within a CFO's office, right? It could be financial reporting, internal audit, treasury, taxes, M&A, FP&A, project finance, supply chain finance, regulatory compliance. There'll be so many departments within a CFO's office. And when you reach that position of becoming a CFO or a VP finance, you can't pick and choose. It's important that you have gone through at least 4 or 5 different kind of profiles by the time you become a senior finance professional. The reason for that is, when you reach that position, Everybody is going to report to you. You cannot pick and choose and say that, hey, Mr. GST, don't report to me, I don't like GST. You can't say that, right? So it's okay. Even if you start in any profile you want, that's perfectly okay. But slowly try and move towards roles which are a blend of finance and business management. Maybe FP&A or finance business partnering is a great example for it. Okay, so as you grow in your careers, try and move towards those kind of profiles, and that will pave your way for becoming a CFO to some extent, right? Like I said, a CFO cannot pick and choose, so he needs to have a fair understanding of many departments, many operations, how it functions, right? So as you grow higher up the ladder, okay, make sure that you have diverse exposure in at least 4 or 5 different kind of departments by the time you finish about 15-20 years. And many large companies do that, right? They transfer people from one department to other in like 2 to 3 years, right? So make use of that. If your company is transferring you to some other department, just don't say that, I don't like this department. That's not a great way, because when you get senior, like I said, you can't pick and choose. So make sure that you get that diverse exposure as well. So any department is great to start with, but try and pivot towards an FP&A or a finance business partner kind of a role as you get senior. Okay. Now, what is the nature of work at different levels? Let's say you start your work as an accounts officer in some company. Will you be doing the same stuff for entire life? Not really. Let's say you start your role as a payroll manager in a big software company which has about 5,000 employees. Okay. Will you be doing payroll for your entire life? Absolutely no. Right. So what is the different kind of nature of work at different levels? See, as a junior, most likely your task will be compliance oriented or transactional. When I started my career, I felt like I was a spreadsheet warrior. I'm just doing VLOOKUP from here and there, generating a lot of reports and then sending to my seniors, and I don't know after that what happens. Something like this. So all of us start that way, either by passing accounting entries or starting with a basic analyst role. We're doing some basic stuff, transactional stuff. Okay, I would say when we are junior, about 80-90% of it will be transactional or compliance oriented, and really 15-20% of it could be commercial or business related or decision making related. But as you grow senior, your role will change. When you become that manager, senior manager types, your compliance focus will reduce and your partnering with the business will increase. Your commercial focus will increase. And when you get to the senior levels, like a VP finance or a CFO or a finance head of some company, okay, you will spend only about 10-15% of your time on compliance. Statutory audit, accounting standard, taxes, all this is fine. So you'll probably spend only 10-15% of your time on that. And the balance 85%, you are involved in commercial decisions, strategic decisions. Like, to give an example, let's say, should we open a Chennai branch? That's a strategic decision that a company needs to take, right? So something like this. So as you get senior, your compliance focus will reduce and your commercial and strategic focus will increase. So don't expect to be CFO and get on day one, right? Don't expect to get into decision making roles on day one. So you will start as a decision enabler, and then slowly, with experience and with your wisdom, you will rise up to the ranks of becoming a senior finance professional, where you will call the shots, you will take the decision, right? So don't jump the gun. All this kind of experience is required, right? Because when you become senior, okay, you need to know what the junior guy is working on, right? You have perfect idea of what the junior guy is working on because you have worked your way up towards that level. Yeah. So don't expect to be CFO on day one. Slowly try and work up the ladder and focus on your skill sets to understand commercial and strategic skill sets as you keep getting senior. Okay. So how is industry going to be different? Now, I'm going to share with you 2 fundamental mindset shift that you need to adopt while working on the industry side. So how it is going to be different from a CA firm. Okay. First tip is that you need to start thinking beyond compliance. Finance roles, like I said, you don't find a start and an end in a finance role. Typically when we are doing our articleship, and if it's an audit focused articleship, we know where do we start. We start with audit planning and end with issuing the audit report and signing the financials, and that's done. We know where do we start and end. But supporting the business is a continuous job, right? So our primary responsibility as a business finance professional would be to support the business. And to support the business, we need to understand the performance of the business, because that's where we come in and make sure that the business is being steered in a profitable direction. To understand the performance of the business, you need to shift your focus from compliance conversations to performance conversations. Now, compliance conversations are accounting standards, disclosures, TDS, GST, financials, notes to accounts, prior period items, all these are all compliance conversations. These are all financial reporting related conversations. But performance conversations are how much is my revenue? What is the gross margin on my product? You know, are all my products profitable or is there a product which is not profitable? Client level profitability. You know, one client may be giving me, if it's a service company, for example, one client may be giving me 40% profit and the other client may be giving me 5% profit. You know, what is the client level profitability? Contracts, pricing, budgeting, forecasting, variance analysis, responding to RFPs, helping the business teams come up with a proper resourcing and a pricing structure. So all of these things are performance conversations. Okay, so try and understand performance conversations, and the way you can do that is try and spend some time with non-finance people within the company. Spend time with cross-functional teams within the company whenever you get a chance, and try and understand a bit more about the business. The second fundamental mindset shift that is required is finance will not be an isolated function. If you are thinking that I'll just sit behind my desk, do some VLOOKUPs or do some analysis here and then do some fancy analysis and then go back home, that's not how a finance function operates. It requires continuous liaising with different cross-functional teams. It could be HR, it could be sales, business development, production, operations, legal teams, supply chain, so many teams that you deal with on a regular basis. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I once did a mega exercise of trying to understand the impact of attrition on our P&L. So there I collaborated with HR by getting all the joiners and leavers data and replacement data and all of that. And it was a completely contradicting exercise, where most of the companies think that attrition has a cost attached to it. What we realized was that we are being benefited by attrition. In fact, we are contributing to some margin because of attrition. Because the trend was that whenever an employee left, let's say an employee who has a CTC of 10 lakhs left, the business was prudent enough to replace him with an employee of 8 lakhs. So in fact, in this process, what the numbers revealed, this exercise revealed, was that attrition was actually contributing favorably to our P&L. Now, this is purely from a numbers standpoint, but there is still a hidden cost involved, because whenever we get a new employee on board, for him to perform well and up to the par, it will take 6 months for him to, get acclimatized to the company culture and really start contributing to the company's needs. Now, there are certain hidden costs to it, but plain and simple exercise mentioned, at least revealed that we were being benefited by attrition. Now, this is the kind of exercise that you may have to collaborate with different cross-functional teams. I collaborated once with the sales team and the business development team, where we are negotiating a bulk contract with a large conglomerate in India who was trying to buy our industrial fuel, and I was working on this deal to come up with an attractive pricing, right? So this is how you will be interacting with different functional teams, cross-functional teams. Most of the times, you will be required to collect inputs and updates from different cross-functional teams, okay? And you are required to provide some insights and reports to cross-functional teams, right? So be prepared for finance not being an isolated job. Yeah. So try and build and work objectively towards building cross-functional connections wherever you join, right? Because that will help you. People aren't going to give data immediately. You have to leverage your relationship. The better relationships you can maintain with all of them, the more effective a finance professional you can be, right? That would be one tip. So these are the two fundamental mindset shifts that is required, to get yourself rewired for industry. Yeah. So how to be great at business finance? So let me share some quick tips here. Okay. First is business acumen. You have to really understand how the business of the company operates, right? One is your business literacy, that financial literacy that you already have. Okay. The other one is what are some of the key elements of your industry. Now, how does the company make money? Depending on which industry you are in, you will have to start going through trade journals or industry related material, where you'll understand a little bit more about the business. The better you understand the business, the better you can give finance solutions to business problems. That's why developing business acumen plays a key role. Build cross-function relationships. I've stressed on this enough, right? A finance role will not be an isolated function. So the better cross-functional relationship, the better relations that you maintain within the company with different cross-functional teams and externally with consultants, with auditors and all of that, the better output you will be able to provide. Analytical mind. By nature, finance roles will be dealing with a lot of data. Okay. And you should be able to put two and two together, right? Whenever you're dealing with a large data, those natural things should come to your mind. Okay, last year, what might have happened? Okay, last year in July, suddenly the sales went up. What could be the reason? So all these kind of things should naturally come to you, where you compare numbers, where you analyze numbers, where you try and build relationships between each numbers, within different kind of set of numbers. Okay, and then you can generate some insights, meaningful insights from it, and then help the business to take better decisions, right? Learn some tools. Again, these are good to have, not an absolute must, but a good to have. Some business intelligence tools like Power BI or Tableau, or any business intelligence tools that is being used within your company that you're working for. Okay, learning that or helping, or mastering that will really help you save a lot of time and do better analysis and get better insights for the business. Okay, a business intelligence tool is usually something which sits on top of the ERP. Okay, so to run some reports, let's say I want to find out branch profitability for Mumbai. Now I don't need to go into ERP and take the entire dump and prepare the profitability report in the Excel sheet, right? This BI tool will give me drag and drop options where I can find out what is the profitability for Mumbai branch. That's what a BI tool does. It will help you do a lot of analysis. It'll make analysis very easy. Yeah, provide insights. So as a business finance professional, you will always be dealing with cross-functional teams, and they don't understand Excel sheets like we do. Like for example, when you're working in a service company, the service company may be maintaining timesheets. Let's say, for example, a software company, all the engineers or whoever software engineers or developers who are working in the software company are required to maintain timesheets as to which project they are working on, right? Now, let's say the project manager asks you for a timesheet data or a timesheet analysis. Now you can't take 10,000 lines of dump on an Excel sheet and send it to the manager and let him figure out. He doesn't understand Excel as better as finance professionals, right? So it would be your duty to compress that in a meaningful way. Maybe use pivot tables, maybe use charts or graphs or whatever, right? Try and sum up in such a way and bring and put a little 2-3 line commentary there to give some insights. Time for this particular project in this month has exceeded over the previous month or something like this, right? So you have to give some insights which will make the life of the business guy easier, because he won't be able to navigate through 10,000 lines of Excel sheet, right? So provide insights and not just data. Remember that. So these are some of the steps that you can work on, right? While which can really help improve your experience as a business finance professional. Okay. Now, what are some of the next steps for preparing for business finance roles? Okay. So I'll bring you back to this slide where I shared at the start of this training. There are basically 3 broad buckets if you go in a large company: financial reporting, business finance, and then specialty finance functions. Now, specialty finance functions are very, very specific. Okay, and you may or may not get to work in those kind of areas during the tenure. Okay, like for example, if you're working in a mergers and acquisitions department, it's not that for 30 years you'll be working in a mergers and acquisitions department only in some company, right? So you may get some exposure for some years, okay, and you may not get exposure for some years. Yeah, that's perfectly okay. But the other 2 buckets, the financial reporting and business finance, is something which is a must, which is required when you become that senior finance professional, or if you're looking to grow in your careers. You might start with a financial reporting or a compliance kind of a role, but as you get senior, you'll have to know the second bucket as well. Now, usually what happens is our curriculum. So like I said, these 2 are a must have. You have to get broad understanding of these 2 buckets, and specialty finance functions are only in large conglomerates. And if you get into those kind of roles, then they'll coach you to that extent. To some extent, the first bucket, our professional courses do a great job to equip us with this first bucket. That is chartered accountancy, CPA, ACCA, CS, CMA. All of these things help us understand financial reporting, compliance, audit, tax, disclosures, all of these things. They do a good job. Even our articleship largely circles around these elements, financial reporting. But the second bucket, which is business finance, financial planning and analysis, or becoming a finance business partner, or collaborating with business teams, all this is largely experience based. You don't really have a course, and everything cannot be found out in a course. So tell me if there is a course on FP&A. Yeah, you can find some course on FP&A, but it will again be very, very different from each industry to industry. Yeah. So will there be a certification for this kind of a role? Till now, there is not. There's nothing called as a PG diploma in a FP&A or something like this. There's nothing available of this sort at this point in time, right? And this, like I said, these are all experience-based learning, and not everything can be taught to you in courses, right? But experience can be shared. That's what I have tried to come up with. Okay, since your first bucket is taken care of by your professional qualification, the second bucket is where I felt that I can contribute, my experience can contribute, and I came up with my own course for this. It's called Industry Plus. Okay, and the Industry Plus course, the benefit of this course is that it will help you understand industry roles better. Where you will be placed in the industry, what kind of a role you might be working in, who will be your stakeholders, who will be interacting with, all of that you will be able to understand better. Because when you start your career, you will not have that visibility of the bigger picture of where you fit in the organization and what your role will be. It will help you rewire your mindset. How do you become a business focused finance professional and make really an impact on your finance role? That is what I've covered here. Equips you with essential financial planning and analysis, practical stuff, completely practical experience based stuff. I've covered everything from budgeting, forecasting, variance analysis, partnering with the business. All of those things I've covered here. I've shared some case studies as well. Thinking beyond compliance, like I said, you will be required to build cross-functional relationships. You will be required to collaborate with other business teams. So how do you think beyond compliance and build stronger relationships and make an impact as a finance professional? All of these things I've covered in this training program. If you are planning to take up a role in any classic enterprise like a trading, manufacturing, or a software company in a finance function, or a finance manager or assistant finance manager or whatever, yeah, this is the course that you need to look for, right? 100% experience based. I've poured in a decade of my experience in this, and this is something which has been very close to my heart, where I want to help a lot of professionals get industry ready, because industry requirements are different from a CA firm. Yeah. Some practical tips for career growth as well. How do you approach a business finance role? What should be there in your LinkedIn profile, your resume? How do you progress in your career from one role to the other? All those things I've covered in this program. Okay, and I'm happy to collaborate with Redon. The investment in this training program is very reasonable. I've tried to keep it very reasonable. It's 3,120 rupees. But because you're here in this session, and I love Redon and I love you guys, I'm offering a discount of 25%. You can use the coupon code READONIP25 and take this course, okay, and take the maximum benefit of it. It will help you really get industry ready. And after you take this course, feel free to reach out to me for one-to-one call if you have any questions about the course. Of course, you can reach out to me anytime for any guidance. I'm always available on LinkedIn. You can just drop me a message and we can get onto a call. But if you really want to learn from my experience, I've put out everything in this course. Okay, and this will really help you get industry ready. So try and take benefit of this course. We will be sharing the link to this course in the description, and I think also Karan will be circulating on the WhatsApp group as well. And so make sure you take benefit of this course. The coupon code will be valid only till tomorrow midnight. That is Monday, tomorrow midnight, 12 o'clock. Yeah, so just make sure you take benefit of this, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Okay, I hope business finance will be your role where you can enjoy and give your best, okay, and make the most of it. Okay, I thank you so much. We'll now open up for questions, and I already have some questions in the chat box, so let me look at them, and then we'll deal with any of the questions that you might have. So let me quickly stop sharing my screen.
This was great, Dhawal. You really dropped a lot of wisdom, and especially your whole philosophy about playing long-term games. That is something we ourselves we don't try and sort of imbibe. So that was great, and a lot of practical advice. So thanks for that. Uh,
Cool. Thank you
Guys,
so
if you
much.
have any questions, just drop them in the comments. And we have a few questions that had already come in through the forms that we had filled. So I'll just
Yep.
voice over some of them, and then maybe Dhawal can take a crack at them. Cool. The first one is, I presume the work done in business finance would be quite different and new to fresh CAs with predominant experience in audits. What are your suggestions to learn the business side and adapt to this kind of work?
Yeah. So, see, to some extent, this is the straightforward answer to this question. So, even though you're predominantly coming from an audit background, okay, you do have exposure, business exposure to some extent. Like if you go to audit a software company, for example, you will understand software industry a little bit. You will understand the terminologies a little bit. You will understand how it operates a little bit, right? So, you have to make use of this, okay, and aim for those business finance roles. Because see, the industry is also tolerant, and they understand that you can't get everything in articleship. Say they do understand what CA freshers are coming from, where CA freshers are coming from, and they'll coach you with it. They'll coach you from that. Okay, apart from this, what you can learn on your own, I would say, Excel data visualization is something which you can focus on. Like I said, when you're interacting with a non-finance professional, they don't understand 10,000 lines of Excel sheet, but they can easily understand a graph or a chart. Yeah. So maybe data visualization is something which you can learn as a skill. Okay. And when you get into those kind of roles where you're interacting with other cross-functional teams, it will really help you.
Great. That is great advice. The next question is, what is the role ahead for a CA who is entering into business finance role in startups?
Business finance roles in startups. Okay. See, again, startups can be very fluid. There you might have to, I mean, if it's a small startup, then you might end up doing everything. You might be doing financial reporting also. You might be looking at business finance also. But if it's a mature startup which has a proper business finance team in there your role will be primarily to steer the business in a profitable direction. You will be enabling the business teams with the right reports, the right profitability analysis, the right cost analysis. Okay. Help them, if they're getting into new deals, then you will help them in the resourcing and the pricing of it. So all of these things are some of the activities that business finance guys will be involved in, right? Largely performance management.
Got it. Cool. Jump to the next question. Currently, I'm working in the banking industry as a financial analyst. I wanted to move to industry in a FP&A or business finance role. What additional skills should I have for the same?
So there's no special skill that is required for FP&A. Largely basic business acumen, basic analytical mind, ability to ask right questions to the business. Okay, understand a little bit of bigger picture. So these are some of the basic skills. Now, as far as moving from a banking to an FP&A role is concerned, I wouldn't say it's an impossible movement, but largely try and get into an FP&A role within a bank first. That could be your best bet, or any of the financial services company or an NBFC, because you have that kind of a backing. See, because to some extent you need to understand the business as well. Okay, so if you're in a banking company, try and get into an FP&A of a bank first. That will be your bridge. And once you have some FP&A experience, then you can try and move towards other industries. Maybe you can move then to an insurance industry or a software company or something like that.
Cool.
Use your banking experience as a bridge is what I basically want to say.
Makes sense. We have another question on similar lines. Someone from JP Morgan who is working as a financial analyst there and wanted to know, can he or should he switch to other industry?
Yeah. See, switching to other industry is definitely possible. Okay, and to some extent, the industry is very receptive, at least in the first 5 to 7 years of your experience. Okay, because see, people get tied to one industry when they become a senior finance professional. Okay, let's say for example, a software company wants to hire a CFO. Okay, now the CEO will not have the time to sit and handhold the CFO and tell him how software industry operates. He'll assume that he'll know how it operates, right? So getting tied to the industry will happen only at senior levels. Like for example, in my case, I'm now tied to service industry. It will be very hard for me to go back into manufacturing. Yeah, because last 6 years I have been associated with leadership roles in service industries only. I can make a move from an advertising to a software company. That's easy for me, but I cannot move from advertising to, I don't know, a solar panel manufacturing company. That will be slightly difficult because that industry I'll have to start understanding from ground up. So moving from one industry to other is possible. Again, I would also recommend that try and find out some common elements. Like for example, I used to handle budgeting forecasting in oil and gas. Okay, I use my budgeting forecasting skill in the interview which I highlighted to get my advertising role, or FP&A role in an advertising company in my previous job, right? So find out those transferable skill sets or transferable elements of your job profile currently and use them to target some other industry.
Great. So guys, take
Fundamentally,
advantage of your youth,
yeah,
basically. and
fundamentally the financial principles will remain the same across industries. Okay, only about 20-25% will be industry specific. So bank on that 75%, back your abilities on the balance 75%, and then make that shift.
got it. Next question is, how do I know if the finance sector is for me? Do I need to be good at numbers in order to go into finance? Is a startup a good place to start? How much do marks play a role in securing a good job? How to stand out when getting hired? It seems like there are a bunch of
So
questions in this
there's
one
a whole
single
lot of
question.
questions.
So
So I'll quickly
please.
take one by one. Yeah. So
So
how do I
first one
know?
is, how do I know if the
Yeah.
finance sector is for me?
Yeah. So see, finance sector, by finance sector, I'm understanding that you mean to say BFSI, banking and financial services, right? So if that sector is for you, there's no straightforward answer, my friend. So you'll have to experiment a little bit, get into these kind of roles and see what you're liking. Okay, not everything will fit into your chartered accountancy curriculum, chartered accountancy bucket. So don't expect ke, अरे मैं तो I had read NPV IRR. I'm not using it in my role. It doesn't work that way. I had read futures and options. I had read CAPM model in my CA. Now I'm not using CAPM model anywhere. So don't expect your job to circle around your curriculum. It will be much beyond your curriculum. So you have to understand the needs of the industry and then to some extent mold yourself, or rewire yourself towards it. Yeah. And just keep experimenting. I would say that be open at least for the first 5 years of your career. You can make at least one or two jobs, change one or two jobs and see which industry, which role is for you, what is your liking, and then build your career on top of it. Do I need to be good with numbers, which is the next question? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm not saying that you need to have the numbers. See, you need to have basic analytical abilities. Your let's say I'm in a meeting and the business head asks me, what are my gross margins on that x product? Now I'm expected to remember this. Okay, on X I'm making a 20% gross margin. you know it's not that computational ability is important. It's situational awareness that is important. Analytical ability, that is what is important. Yeah, if you can prepare for that meeting well as to what might be some of the questions from the numbers front that will come up, because you will get into these kind of roles where you will be interacting with non-finance guys, and there'll be some senior folks who might ask you some questions. Hey, what did we make last year on that client? If you don't know it, or at least you have something handy, you're working handy, so that you can refer it and just say just a minute and you can refer it and then answer it. Yeah. So yeah, you have to be good with your analytical ability, not really a computational ability, so to say. Yeah.
And it always helps to have some common thumb rules. That's what I use. To have some common thumb rules to
Very
somehow
true.
crack these numbers when a senior folk
Very true.
when the
So,
senior
so
folks
when I
sort
when
of
I
ask
first
these
start,
questions in important meetings. Yeah.
right. So when I first started in my FP&A role, which was in an advertising company, and I noticed that whenever I get into these meetings, there are some 4-5 common points
Yeah.
which the
Correct.
business head asks always. you know
Yeah.
so then what I did was I just created a sheet, and I used to keep that sheet open, and he used to ask me, okay, how much did we what was the turnover we made from this client last year? Okay, this is what we made from this client last year. So I used to be ready with that. So it has to be a little bit, I would say, like I said, you find out some of the key elements and
Yeah.
maintain it for your quick reference as well. Okay, so
Cool.
next question, I think, how much
Next one
mark?
is a
Yeah.
startup a good place to start?
Yeah, of course. Why not? I mean, it's a good place to start. But as from a career standpoint, I would just put out a word of caution out there. See, a lot
Hmm.
of startups fizzle out in the first 6 months. They'll only be running till they have the funding. you know, so just make sure that you're working in a startup which is slightly mature. You
Hmm.
can take those risks in the first 5 years of your career, absolutely. That would be the best time. Okay, but
Hmm.
after you have some experience, if you're completely joining a startup, if it's a very very early stage startup, then you never know when that will fizzle out. So I would say that startups are a good place to start, but do your due diligence. Try and join a mature startup, uh, which is well funded from for your own career sake.
Great. Yeah. The next one is how much do marks play a role in securing a good job and how to stand out when getting hired. A lot of the audience that we had got in some of the groups that we were able to make were people who are newly qualified chartered accountants who sort of
Right.
go for the campus placements right now. So this will be helpful.
See, like any other placement or interviews, marks are only used for shortlisting the candidates. In an interview, nobody's going to ask you how much did you make in MAFA or how much did you make in strategic finance management. Nobody's going to ask you in an interview. Okay, and that's not relevant also, right? So they will try to judge you in the interview on the behavioral aspects, right? So marks only play a role in shortlisting. Okay, after you get shortlisted and once you reach the interview, it's all up to you how you can convince the interviewer that you are the right fit for the role. So how to stand out when getting hired? I think that's the next question. So again, try and show curiosity to understand. One of the things, let me share you something very interesting. So when I was interviewing CA freshers, one of the key weightage that I used to place, okay, during my interviews was what kind of questions they are asking me about the role.
Hmm.
I have shared the job description beforehand, right? Now I want them to ask me some key questions. What will this role be? Like for example, when I went to go for interviews in my early career, like in the first 5 years, when I used to go for interviews, I used to ask one question: that how much percentage of this job do you think is compliance focused and commercial focused? Now that's a great question to ask because you want to know whether that role is like 80% passing accounting entries and compliance, 20% commercial, or it's like 50% commercial and 50% compliance focused. So that's what I was keen on. So develop a couple of curious questions that you want to ask the interviewer, because that will show your eagerness to work with them. That will show your eagerness to learn new things and contribute. You know, just don't ask basic question. What is the company timing? Is it 5 days a week? So yeah, you can find that on the internet. Ask some
Right.
curious questions about the profile.
I'll tell you one instance, and this is from Shantanu's experience. So when he was getting interviewed for Swiggy, Swiggy, is not a publicly listed company. Obviously, it is a privately listed company. So he
Right.
downloaded their financials from the MCA website. He did
Hmm.
a proper analysis. He actually figured out an error in their financials, and he went for the interview. And in the interview, the CFO of Swiggy, Mr. Rahul Bothra, was interviewing. And he actually, when he was given the chance to ask a question, Shantanu actually pointed out the errors, and then they had a sort of very interesting conversation around
Yeah.
how the financial statements are sort of structured for Swiggy. And yeah, then he was like straight up hired. So it always helps to ask curious questions and show that drive in you.
Yeah. So or some questions about the industry. Something like this is required. You need to ask some curious questions about the profile. So I give a lot of weightage to this particular thing because I want to know whether the guy is coachable. I
Hmm.
want to know whether
Yeah.
when faced with a situation or when he's interacting with the business guys, will he be able to ask the right questions, get the
Hmm.
relevant information, or talk to them? That's what I want to understand. So a lot of weightage is given on your behavioral aspects in the interview and not really your technical stuff or marks. So don't worry too much about your marks right now.
Cool. The next question is how easy or difficult is it to switch from a SAP or ERP consultant to a proper finance role in industry?
Uh Great question. But see, it is slightly difficult, but not impossible. Okay, but again, I would mention that, let's say if you're an SAP or ERP consultant and you have worked in ERP implementation or some project in some particular industry, okay, then try and get a finance role in that industry. On your resume, if you mention that led a project of ERP implementation in an insurance company, for example, then maybe getting into a finance role of an insurance company is your best bet, because on your resume and in the interview you can display some understanding about the industry.
Mm.
you know that's what is expected in a business finance role. As long as you can display some business understanding, you stand a chance,
True.
right?
Cool.
Or if it's a very large company that you're working in, let's say like an Infosys, for example, you're working as a functional consultant in Infosys, then within Infosys, see if you can get a transfer to a business finance role. um, that will be your best bet, that will be your bridge. And then once you move to other profile, then you can start applying outside if you want to.
Cool. The next question is, if you're getting a role of your choice, but it is offering 40% of your current pay, what should be done in as in next org of increments? Your CTC is taken as base, so your base would be 40 of current. Sort of a very specific personal question. Someone is going through a lot of.
Yeah, so let me tell you one thing. There's no straightforward answer to this, but see, guys, your career is going to be a balance between three things. Okay, first is your profile. Okay, what your profile is, what you like, what you don't like. Second is the pay. Some companies will pay you better, some companies will not pay you better. Some companies will pay you 40% hike and hire you, then you will notice that the company situation is not great, and 2 years you might not get increment. You never know.
Yeah.
And the third thing is your manager. Sometimes the profile is great, it's paying you very nicely, but you have an absolutely shit manager sitting on your head, right? So it's going to be a balance between these three things. I would say that just gather whatever you're getting from that company. If you're getting lower pay in this company but better profile, then take it. This experience will help you later on. Okay, some company will give you better pay but a shit profile. Take it, maybe the pay will help you later on somewhere, to make a switch. So it's all about balancing these three things in your career, and not every company will give you that. I work with 4 companies now. Has every company given me everything? Not really. Some companies were great paymasters, but the job was really shitty. Some companies had great profiles, but they were just not ready to give me any increment. So that's how it is. Just it's all about balance. Right now, I would say go for this role. Don't worry too much about it. Yeah, if it's the role of your liking and your interest, then go for it.
Cool. I'll move to the next question. Yeah. For those in an audit role, especially internal audit in an Indian company, after how many years of experience should one apply for a business finance role in startups?
Um, Typically, I would say that 2.5 years in internal audit will give you a lot of exposure. Okay, because in an in-house internal audit role in a large company, you might get to see or do different kind of assignments within a 2-year horizon. After about 2 years, then maybe you should try for a business finance role. No, unless your ambition is to become an internal audit head in some company, then you will of course stick around. But if your long-term intention is to move towards a finance and then eventually grow up to the rank of becoming a senior finance professional or a CFO, then I think about 2.5 years in internal audit should be a good time to switch.
Cool. What are the upcoming finance startup opportunities for a fresher finance professional? So a lot of startup related interests and questions.
Yeah, so I would say that when it comes to startups, just look for some of the sunrise industries, and look for startups in those space. Like for example, fintech is a hot industry these days. Yeah, or the electric vehicle manufacturing or any EV infrastructure is a hot industry these days, right? Power sector will be a hot industry for the next 10 years because so much of everything is going to be electric in the coming days, right? So these are some of the hot sectors. If you get to work in a startup which are in these sectors, then maybe that's what you should aim for, and that'll help you. Forget about the finance, what finance role you will get in these companies, because see, bulk of it will be very similar. Running a finance in a startup will not be very different from running a finance in any other companies. Fundamental finance principles will still remain the same, right? So as far as you can target some sunrise industries when it comes to startups, then maybe in the medium term you'll be in a better space.
Great. Next one's a really sort of interesting question. It's the viability of business finance roles in future with advent of technology, which will make most of things automated.
You see, I get asked this question a lot. Will automation take away jobs? Guys, really, it will not happen that way. See, think about, let's rewind 40 years ago when our parents were working in manual environment and computers were first being introduced. When my mother was working in a bank job, she and there was a news like one computer can do job for five people. That much how efficiency will be generated. Now, did computer take away five people's jobs? No, in fact, it generated more jobs with the IT industry booming in India, right? So that's what something people learn to work with computers, right? So that's what something will happen. So will robots come and take away our jobs? No, we will learn to work with robots. We will learn to work with automation. We will learn to work with technology, right? So having a fair understanding of technology is enough for now. You don't need to be really a developer or a coder at this point in time, okay? Because fundamentally, coder hi banna hota, to we would have taken some other route. Right now we like finance, we like analysis, so that's why we are here. Okay, so stick to those things with a fair understanding of technology. That's enough for now.
Great. Guys, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. We're taking questions that have come in through the forms that we had circulated. Cool. So this is someone who is not from a finance background and wants to enter the finance industry and wanted some tips on that. So how to start a career in finance when you're not from a finance background.
See, one I would say foundational qualification is required for a finance career. It could be an MBA finance, it could be a CPA, CMA, ACCA, CA, whatever it is. Right, one strong foundational qualification is required for a finance career. So that's your starting point. Okay, once you have that, and then you can pick up your specialization where you want to get into. Right. So as a starting point, try and get some good qualification first.
The next question is something which we've covered over the course of this video. So it's about how should our thinking be when we transition into a role of a finance manager.
Like I said, the fundamental shift from an audit to a finance role is about two things. Like I said, one is maintaining strong cross-functional relationships with other business teams. Yeah, and the second thing is you have to always think about supporting the business, and not just compliance. Like I'll give you an example. There was this one business development VP who came to me and said that, okay, we are getting this XYZ client on board, but this client is asking for 90 days credit. Okay, the standard industry term is a 30 days credit. So can we give 90 days credit to this client? Now, the straightforward answer is no. The company policy is 30 days or 60 days credit, so we cannot give 90 days credit. Okay, that's the compliance attitude or the saying no attitude. But as a good finance manager, as a good business finance professional, what you would do is inquire a little bit more about what this client is, how big or small this client is. Maybe this company is a large Fortune 500 company which you want to have it on board because of the brand name, because this brand will open up some doors for other opportunities, something like this. The business guys always think like this, right? Then you work out some rule or some exception for it. Okay, let's do a historical analysis, or let's do a credit analysis or evaluation of this company, get some report from Dun and Bradstreet or any of these credit rating agencies, and you notice that the credit rating agency has rated this company well. And then you go back to the CFO with a business case, okay, and say that we have to give this client 90 days credit, because if we get this client on board, this might open up doors for some other clients as well. Or as an exception, we can give this client a 90 days credit. So that's how you collaborate with the business, okay, to solve a business problem rather than just saying a no as an answer.
Great answer. Cool. I think we're done with most of the questions that come in the forms. Guys, if you have any questions for Mr. Dhawal, you can just drop them on the comments.
Guys, one thing I would like to share here. This is the best career advice that I got on day one when I was starting my career as after my chartered accountancy, and this was that many of us will have a distant ambition, a long-term ambition of becoming a CFO or an entrepreneur or whatever it might be. Okay, but we are too focused on thinking the end result. Okay, or we are too focused on thinking step number 20 and don't take step number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right. So if you have those long-term ambition of becoming a CFO or a senior finance professional or a partner in a big four or whatever that might be, okay, break it break it into chunks of 2 to 3 years and make sure that every 2 to 3 years you're progressing one step above. Okay, and you will notice that within 10 years you've reached significantly closer to your destination. That's how you have to work on it. Okay, don't just be too focused on the destination. Suddenly overnight you're not going to become a CFO anyways, no matter what number of years of experience you have. Some people think that time is something which will bring success. It's not going to happen. Just because you have 20 years experience you will be a CFO. It doesn't work that way. And there's no standard rule that a CFO needs to have so many years of experience, but he does need to have certain level of wisdom or a certain level of years behind him to handle certain things. Yeah, so work on it step by step. Keep taking baby steps and you will notice over a 8 to 10 year horizon that you have come significantly a long way. In my first job in Bharat Petroleum, I started by doing just leftovers. I was a new member in the team. So in the first 6 months, I had two important jobs. Okay. One is do whatever the leftover jobs my seniors had for me, was to do a VLOOKUP from here and there, put some pivot tables and give. That was how I started my career. And my second most important job, if there is a late setting, I have to order from the restaurant. Those were the two most important tasks in my first job. That's how we all start. Okay, but if I reflect back, when I reflect back on my 11 years, I've learned so many things, and it has been a really enjoyable career. Was it enjoyable every day? Not really. There were some days of frustration as well, but overall it has been great. Yeah, so that's how it will be. Try to take a longer horizon and don't just conclude in a day or two.
That's great advice. Even when I started at Swiggy, my first few months, the most important thing that I was supposed to do was just press the approval button. Just make sure that the number is within budget and just press the approval button. And I've come a long way. So yeah, we usually start off that way, and it's
Right.
important to keep long-term horizons. Cool. Any other questions, guys? I think people sort of left now. Great, Dhawal. This was great. I think very enriching for me as well. Uh, Amazing.
Thank you so much,
Cool.
everybody, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you guys have any questions. I'm always available. Like I said, I reserve my Saturdays to, help finance professionals get better direction, and I'll continue to do that as well.
Great. And guys, if you guys need sort of any help from us in any way, you think we can sort of augment your journey as a professional, as a student, please reach out to me or Shantanu or anyone at Readown. And this is a new channel that we have sort of started, so show your love, like, share, and subscribe, as they say. So, thanks, Dhaval.
Thank you. Have a
Nice
great evening,
speaking.
everyone. Bye.